How's it going, everyone? In this video, I'm going to be doing a book review of Communication Miracles for Couples by Jonathan Robinson. Communication Miracles is a book best for those that are in a relationship and looking to add some more communication techniques to their abilities. It's also good for people who potentially might want to do that in the future, though there's a bunch of activities that require two people, so they might be a little bit hard to do solo. The difficulty to digest is extremely easy. It's very, very clear what it is that you're trying to understand. There's a lot of examples. There are a couple of acronyms or more acronyms than I would kind of expect or hope for, but those do help a lot of people keep the concepts in order. But for some people that could be a little overwhelming. So, Communication Miracles for Couples by Jonathan Robinson is basically a guide to improving communication with your significant other. And for those in a relationship, these techniques can really help. It gives you a little bit more of a framework for how to talk to people. And then it also gives you a bunch of thought experiments to help kind of show those different examples. So, the two concepts in this book that really change how we're going to interact with our significant other are the following. The first is the idea of acknowledge, accept, and appreciate, right? Those three things in a relationship, and especially a romantic relationship, are going to do a lot of work. This doesn't mean you have to agree all the time or say, they go along with whatever the other person is saying. It's just about saying, like, okay, I acknowledge the things you're saying, right? In some way, actively communicate that you've heard what's being said. Appreciation, again, just kind of the same vein, showing that you appreciate what the other person is going through or what they've said. And acceptance is not adding judgment, right? You might disagree, but not actually saying, like, well, you're stupid for thinking that, or that's wrong, or adding some sort of extra judgment to it. Just those three things alone can really make a big difference in being able to communicate effectively without contention rising. The second idea that is very prominent in this book and carries a lot of weight is the idea of a self-esteem bank account. So the idea here is that relationships kind of run on a supply of goodwill. And when we communicate that, the other person is valued or loved or, these other things, right? Appreciation, acceptance, and acknowledgement, these three things kind of build up this bank account. And when we have difficult topics or kind of start having some fights or are sarcastic or whatever the thing is, it starts draining from this account. And so the idea is to keep your account filled up as much as possible, right? Push as much appreciation, acceptance, and acknowledgement in as you can. And then when difficult things happen, you'll have a surplus of rapport to kind of build on. Beyond those two concepts, those are the biggest ones, there's a couple themes that get repeated. One of the biggest ones is communicating without blame, right? And that's basically just talking to people in a way that doesn't make them feel like you're attacking them, but kind of comes at the problem. So the book is full of examples for how to kind of shift your language in this way. So one example might be, I feel anxious when you spend more than our budget, instead of you're reckless and wasting all our money, right? This change in wording makes it so that in one sense, one of these versions, you're really blaming them and attacking their character. And the second piece is just kind of saying, I feel a certain way when you do a certain thing, right? I feel anxious when you spend more than our budget. Is so much softer than you're reckless and wasting all our money. You're showing kind of this relationship that you have with certain events and not putting it on the person as an individual or attacking their traits. Another major theme throughout this book is listening and different tactics for listening. And basically, it boils down to slowing down the conversation and getting more explicit about acknowledgement on both sides, right? Validating what the other person has said, making sure that you heard what they said and what they meant, and making sure the conversation goes at a pace that it doesn't get out of hand and just start escalating. Another major theme is teamwork and synchronicity. So the idea here is that both people in the relationship have to be on the same page for things to work. And in that sense, it means like kind of communicating about certain preferences, communicating about goals and ideas and values and all these different things that can possibly cause contention. Because if you get to them early, then you have your best chance at kind of getting rid of any problems before they arise, or dealing with them in a place that's not heated as opposed to after things have already risen to a certain level. So all in all, Communication Miracles is a great book for those in a relationship that are looking to work on their relationship, work on their communication. There's a lot of really specific strategies and tactics, which makes it nice so that you can try different things and pick and choose what actually works for you. In addition, the concepts are really easy to pick up, and each chapter has a nice recap at the end. So it's a very, very digestible book, and something that can be useful if you're in a relationship, to kind of think of some new tactics and put a framework around some of your communication to ensure that it's a little bit more pleasant than it might be otherwise. Other considerations. So there are a few pieces of information in this book that don't feel that sound. Maybe it's just because it came out a while ago and they haven't aged well. But one of the examples is basically saying you should create pacts with your partner and then implement very serious consequences if they fail to act. And while it might produce change in some extreme circumstances, for the most part, it's going to put a strain on the relationship. If you're holding someone hostage and forcing them to do a certain set of actions, otherwise face all these consequences, it's not really as supportive as much as it is punishment. So, there are a couple ideas like this that are a little bit harder to digest, or I'm a little more skeptical of. So that's something to kind of take into it as you read, is just think through what the full implications of these exercises are. Another one of these tactics that I'm very skeptical of is, it basically said, you should sometimes produce completely facetious comments to make conversations a little easier. And that is an advice that resonates very well with me, because if you're not being genuine in some way, I think that will show through eventually. Just faking niceties isn't really tenable in the long term. So I think it's more realistic to kind of look at a way that you can produce language or produce things that are more genuine but still soft. The one of the examples is something along the lines of like, "Oh, you're really good at sewing, but I really don't like the food you cook." And it's like that first thing to open it up and soften it doesn't really do it right. People know pretty quickly that you're just kind of getting away from the point and trying to soften it up. So I think there are better tactics for things like that. The last piece of the book, or the last claim that I have a little bit of trouble with, is it makes very, very strong claims about how effective these solutions are going to be. Like, oh, if you do some of these exercises, you'll never fight again. And it's just not realistic. They definitely can help. They're worth trying. It's worth experimenting with and working on. But thinking that it's a resource, as it kind of states, that's going to cure everything and instantly fix all your problems isn't super realistic. So that's just one more consideration. But all in all, I think it's a pretty good book and worth reading if you want to work on your relationship. So, as always, I have a couple questions for the applicable content section. One, how can you better communicate acknowledgement, appreciation, and acceptance to those around you? Two, consider the self-esteem bank account of your three closest relationships. How can you improve them? Three, does blame or judgment slip into your language with loved ones? That's all I've got for this review. So hopefully it gives you kind of a good idea of what Communication Miracles for Couples is all about. All in all, it's just about, a couple basic concepts, a bunch of examples, and then showing you different ways or different tactics that you can use to try to improve your communication. I do think it's a pretty good book, but there is, a little bit of nuance to be had. That's all I've got. So, as always, if you have any questions, comments, topics you want me to cover, throw them down in the box below, and I will get to them as soon as I can.
You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. Reflect, take action, and enjoy life. See you next time.